Welcome to this very special presentation of ProLib Live.
From 9 to 5, been biting my tongue for all this time. Won't let anyone cut me short. I was thinking this was the way to go, and you put up your puppet show. I say cheers to life. No, I'll be no good man's wife. Just leave me alone. I'm running the show. I'm telling you, it's my time to rise up. Live the life.
I love this song. I love this song so much. Alright, let's get it turned down. Hi everybody, welcome to the show. With me tonight is this man right here. This is Socka
Hello.
Count. Good evening, Socka. How are you?
Am I unmuted now? Wonderful. Absolutely
Good.
wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It has been I've done so much streaming today. I did Twitch earlier, and then I was on with Sinister Porpoise, and now I'm on
saw
with you.
that.
So yeah, I've been all over the place. I've been all over the place today, which is good. I like that. You know, I like to talk to people, even when I feel like I don't have much to say. I still just enjoy the interaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's kind of like I think what brings a lot of us here to in the first place is that interaction, just be able to talk to random people.
Yeah, agreed. Tonight, just like every night, your messages will appear on the screen due to the great and wonderful Batsy. And if you all could, to start the show, just put the letter B in the chat, just to say thank you to Batsy for all the hard work that she does here live and on the Discord channel and moderating in the live chats here and on Twitch. She does fantastic. And you just put a little B in chat just to say thank you to Batsy. I really appreciate it.
Mhm.
So this series is the Requiem for the GDC. Requiem, for those that don't know the origins of the word, basically was kind of like a funeral dirge in Catholicism. It was a song that was played at funerals or in other remembrances of the dead. And that's why I think it's so appropriate to title this series Requiem for the GDC, because this series will kind of be the final goodbye in some ways to a community that many people were a part of and loved very, very much, including this gentleman right here. Socka, if you could start tonight with how you came to find the Great Debate Community.
Oh man. Yeah. No, it was really weird. Back in about 2010, we had our first kid, my wife and I, and up until that point in time, I was, your standard kind of, mid-20s, guy. I worked, I played video games, and that's it. And then you have a kid, and all of a sudden, like, things kind of change. I was pretty active socially prior to that. And when we had our first kid, we had something that a lot of my friends didn't have, which was a kid, which changed like the whole kind of dynamic, who we can hang out with and all that other stuff.
Sure.
And I was home a lot more. So I started playing actually a lot more video games online, first off, and then I ended up I had to move for work to go to Toronto back in 2011. And at that point in time, like, brand new city, brand new kid, didn't know anyone. And I stumbled across Google Hangouts one day. And it was like back then, like, you can just log into the Google Hangouts, and they had like all of them listed there. All the people, all the like these open streams that people were doing. Sometimes they post join links, sometimes they wouldn't. And I thought it was really cool. I thought it was cool that you could see this stuff. And I remember that I was watching one day of this woman named Nadia Chambers, and she was having a discussion about the militarization of police, and I'm like, that is such a cool topic. I know some stuff about this. So I jumped in, had to create a YouTube account because I hadn't had one up to that point in time, or a Google Plus account. I had to create that. Went into the room and had this discussion with them, and then I find out that she's actually part of like this. That was kind of like an off night of topics. The majority of the time, they have like theological discussions, and as someone who's been an atheist their entire life, I was raised in an atheist household. Religion hasn't really featured prominently in my life at all up to this point in time. And the fact that I'm Canadian, where we don't have quite the level of fundamentalism as they do have in the States, that I'm also like, this is the first time I'm meeting like people that believe that the Earth is like 6,000 years old, and right. I mean flat earthers, and there's just these weird people, and I just got addicted to it, and I ended up kind of like falling into this group with people that were debating philosophy and theology, and we find out that it's been kind of coined as the great debate community, almost mockingly, because it's the question that this debate that's been happening for thousands of years that we're still no closer to coming to a solution on. But yeah, that was it. Like I just started going to these these hangouts, and from there I just started branching off. Like that Google Plus. I was never a big fan of Facebook or social media or anything like that. I never had really a Facebook account, or even to this day I don't do Instagram or any of that stuff. The real kind of like first kind of social media account that I really had was this Google Plus thing, and I like the format. I like the way that it worked. I like the way that you can kind of track the people that you meet through there, and that it was linked to this ability that you can at any time just like, hey, I'm just going to start off a hangout. I can stream it to YouTube. We can keep it off air. It doesn't really matter, and we just get in and just have these discussions. And at the time, because I had the young kid at home, my wife and I worked off hours. So I generally worked during the day, the standard kind of 9 to 5, and my wife would work in the evenings. So, the moment that the kid went to bed, my wife's not home until she's done her shift. And so that's a long time to sit around with nothing to do. So, yeah, I mean, it became like, sadly enough, for, the 4 years I lived out in Toronto, it was my main social outlet for talking to people that, weren't two at the time. And so it was good. I mean, I really liked that. It was and man, it just like the more that you're in there, the more that you're spending time, and you're just learning stuff constantly because of this community that just kind of encouraged people to just learn from each other. And I mean, the stuff that I'm talking with scientists, I'm talking with theologians, I'm talking with people that were a lot more educated than I was on a variety of topics. And it was just, it became almost addictive. It's like, if I had some free time, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to log on, I'm going to do G Plus, I'm going to do the Google Hangout. And then, I mean, there was also that matter of just like guilty pleasure, because you would meet some of the most interesting people for good reasons, and a lot for terrible reasons, where you meet these people that are just so stupid that they're entertaining. And that it was just like, you just wanted to like just follow them. It was like you're part of reality TV, and you're completely like immersed as like a cast member of some type of reality TV thing, in the way things that operated.
Real quick, I want to get to these super chats. Who's Your Buddy donated $5. Thank you, Who's Your Buddy, and says, "What the F? Socka isn't a bot. What even is reality?" Thank you, Who's Your Buddy.
This is just a really advanced 3D programming software.
That's exactly. You're like Max Headroom, but of the 21st century. Steve McRae Manager donated $20. Thank you very much, Steve McRae's Manager. Says, "This guy is an imposter. I do not hear any kids playing or crying." We're definitely going to get to that. We're definitely going to get to that. Michael Westp donated $5 and said, "Socka, thank you for being an after show. Landed Kentucky year off. But neutral insights on government are, in my opinion, very informative and important." We're going to get to some of that, too. And Steve McRae manager sent $5 more and said, let's call this guy Sweater Account. He's not worthy of being a sock. So before we get to some of the more contentious stuff, I want to talk a little bit about your name, Socka Account. What's the origin of that?
So like I started off on G Plus. Like I needed a name, and I mean, obviously, I at the time I was more kind of appreciative of the anonymity that you get online. So there was like a name that I'd use for like video game stuff. It was Bartholomew Roberts, Black Bart the Pirate.
Right.
And I use it for everything. Even on Twitter now, like it's still my Bartholomew Roberts account. And that's what like the main thing that I did for Google Hangouts as well. And there was a guy, a friend of mine named Nick, that used to host a lot of these Hangouts. But so the way it would work is that if you got kicked from a Hangout from the guy that started it, or anybody that had like admin rights in the Hangout, you weren't blocked, but you couldn't come back into that Hangout. Like you'd have to wait for the next one, and then you can join that one, or you can try to get onto a different account. And so we were in there one day, and some people were in there, and they're just being complete dickheads. And so Nick went to go kick one of them out, misclicked on the little icons, and ended up kicking me out of the room. And so I messaged him, I'm like, what the hell, man? He's just like, oh yeah, my bad. Just grab a sock account and come back in. And I'm like, sock account? The hell's a sock account? I don't have a sock account. Like why would I need a sock account? I have one account. That's all I ever needed. And so I'm like, whatever. So I went and I created literally a sock account. Found like asked for like the image thing. Google searched the sock puppet, first sock I found, put it up there. And like slowly that just became my main account. Like to the point that it was like I used to do this thing where like every week or every couple of weeks I would redo my avatar in the style of somebody else in the community. Like so if Chris, I might take like Chris Maudy's avatar and they just switch it up and put a sock puppet in there somewhere, or like Floyd FP, a guy who's still around now. I would just use his like Pink Floyd background, but have like a sock floating in the distance or anything like that. But I used to do a bunch of these things, and then it got to the point that people started just submitting socks to me. Like I would open up like my messages, and there'd be like, hey, I made you a sock puppet, and it's like me as like the one for this video, like Clint Eastwood, like Emperor Palpatine, like all these other socks, like just that, and they're absolutely amazing. So I just I still use my punk rock sock, I think mainly on YouTube still, and so I just it was kind of funny because it just. Everybody talks about sock accounts, and I'm like the physical embodiment of them, I guess.
So I've had a few people mention a few things I'd like you to talk about for a moment. First of all, Vincent Jones says Socka even had his own show at one point with Xbox Fiend, who's not around anymore.
Yes. Yeah. Now yeah, I used to my entire kind of dive into YouTube was that same buddy Nick, the guy that kicked me. He went by the handle Xbox Fiend. Me and him decided one day that's like, you know what, the only real kind of access that you had for like a lot of these the debate rooms was there were open chat rooms. That it was a very like one of the main differences between that like that time and like now is that the Google Plus came out at the end of like the message boards, the forums, like places like Delphi forums, where there was a lot more kind of involvement from people doing that. The great debate, wasn't a spectator sport. It was, mainly people wanting to go in and, try out their arguments or just, talk with people. It was supposed to be, it was very active. It was like, just this coliseum of people getting up there and yelling at each other over stupid things. It was fun. I loved it. And, but every once in a while something would come up and it would just get passed over really quickly instead of a hangout, whether it was, an issue like, do animals have rights? Or does what is a good foundation for logic? and we have a bunch of people in the room kind of talking past each other, and topics changing like every 30 seconds sometimes, that you missed out on these opportunities. So it was like whenever something kind of came out, it was just like, okay, we created this channel called Deeper Than Dogma, where we would just focus on one topic. And it's weird to think, but like this is kind of like a relatively novel idea that we're going to do a show with a set panel with a set topic for less than 8 hours. And people would say, "Wow, that's a crazy idea,"
Right.
And so we did this, and we and the channel sold. I mean, it was like the only people that ever watched this channel. Like we never promoted or anything. We just there was maybe like I think I got like 500 or 600 subs on this channel. It was all people that I interacted with within the community itself, and like our entire policy towards it was that was absolutely terrible for content creation. It was that we're not really trying to satisfy a market. It's that we're going to have conversations that we want to have,
Right.
and if people enjoy listening to them, then awesome, you can watch this, great. And if you don't want like this type of stuff, then you don't have to watch it. I mean, pretty simple. And it was a lot of fun. We did that for probably almost 2 years, and then it got to the point where you get to that dreaded point where like I'm not a serious YouTube content creator. And I remember we were sitting around one week and we're like, okay, I think we'd always kind of talk like on Tuesday about what our Thursday or Friday topic was going to be. And I think like Thursday morning had come along once, and we're like, okay, what are we talking about this week? And a couple people kind of threw out some ideas, and me, Nick, were kind of talking to each other and realized we don't really want to talk about any of this stuff. Okay, well, let's just push this back. Let's just push it back to every 2 weeks, and then see if something else back comes up. And then I just got to the point where I couldn't. I felt like, I mean, it was too much of. I'm working full time, and it was even just doing one video a week, trying to come up with a topic and talk on it was actually difficult. And it was just something that I wasn't willing to do. I wasn't monetized. I wasn't getting paid for it. Having to try to herd cats to get the guest speakers on to try to do that. And I mean, there was things like we did one show on Neil Postman's The Disappearance of Childhood, which is a great book. If you watch the Deeper Than Dogma we did on that if people want to, or just go read the book. But I mean, like when this came up as a topic, it was just like, well, this is a really interesting topic. Now I have to spend the next 3 days power reading a book, to try to, to speak on it. And that was way too much for me. It was, I couldn't dedicate that amount of time to something that was supposed to be just a fun 2 hour a week project.
Couple of messages real quick. Steve McRae's manager sent another $5, said Socka without kids screaming is like Nate Brody without Lampy, just doesn't seem right. I agree. Next, Burnt Toast says, thanks for doing the stream. I've been wondering about the backstories of the GDC, which reminds me, thank you, Burnt Toast. First of all, reminds me, there's something I meant to say at the top of the stream that I didn't, but this entire series is Dragnot Silvas' idea. So, by the way, Drag gets like full credit for this idea. And thank you, Drag, for suggesting it, because it is. I'm interested in the backstories of the GDC too, but
you don't have to inflate that man's ego any more than it is. Just saying.
But speaking of Dragnot Silva, a moment ago he said this: "Ask Socka how he ran Forbidden Fruit off of YouTube."
Okay, I didn't run Forbidden Fruit off of YouTube, guys. Okay, I've never claimed to run them off of. So there was after like a few years. Now, I mean, I'll be completely honest. Like when I first kind of came into the community, I was philosophically illiterate. I was theologically illiterate. I made the worst arguments out there. I mean, and this is even just like for that period of time. Like I made terrible arguments for a long time. It was only until maybe in the last 3 years or so that I finally kind of got to my grounding of like that you get past that Dunning-Kruger level where you finally realize how little you know, and my approach to things changed completely. But I mean, what I found also like within these discussions that you make enough bad discussions, you get called out enough on enough bad arguments that eventually like you notice that other people start making those arguments and you want to correct them. And there was a guy that kind of came out real popular for a very short period of time named Forbidden Fruit, and garnered like a pretty decent following in the short time that he was doing his content. And a guy that used to write for Free Thought blogs that's been around a couple times. I've spoken to him a couple times in Drake's Hangouts and shit. A guy named Ed Brahe. I believe that's it. Ed Brahe. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong.
No idea.
But he wrote an article called I think it was like 12 things that atheists need to stop saying. And one of them, like Forbidden Fruit, saw this, and I was friends with the guy. I liked, going into streams, and there was a lot of streams with me in there back when I used to be a little raccoon on the screen. It was fucked up. Never mind. It's a long story. Anyway, then he started going through this list. And every single time that he'd hit a point, because he said, "Hey, I'm going to review this list," and it's like, okay, so he goes through all the points there, and he'd finish and be like, "Oh, that's a stupid thing," and I'm like, no, not really. It actually makes a lot of sense. And I went through and whenever he'd offer a challenge to what Ed Brady wrote, I basically kind of slapped it down. Just playing defense wasn't even intending to. But then it got to the topic of religion is a mental illness. That Ed Brady's got to stop. He says, hey, people got to stop saying that religion is a mental illness. And I'm going to say, yeah, people have to stop saying that. That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous claim to make. And Forbidden Fruit was just adamant about that. Just like he wanted to argue that point. He wanted to stress that point, and he went crazy over it. He made videos on that, and I remember like that he finally put out this one kind of response video to me and some other people that were giving him criticism about religion being a mental illness. And I wrote like a 3,000 word like response.
Wow.
With every single point that he had, every single timestamp, every single source that he used, how he was misrepresenting it, and put it out there and push it around. And that got around. And he didn't like that. And slowly thereafter, just disappeared. And because of that, there was a few people that used to get pissed off at me. Because just like, well, here I am an atheist, and I'm having like these conversations with theists, and it's always fun because like I was a little bit more unrestrained back in the day, so people used to love when I'd lose my shit on theists, but it's not as fun when people interpret this as you attacking your own side. And while some people were appreciative of it, a lot of people weren't. And so I get this I was getting this accusation constantly of this, like, well, you ran this guy off of YouTube. I'm like, I'm a fucking, like, I didn't do anything. I'm just a fucking, shit poster that goes into Hangouts every once in a while. It wasn't my intent, but yeah, that's fine. Like, and Drag knows it's a sore spot for me because I actually like Forbidden Fruit.
That's fair. Drag knows what he's doing.
Yes,
okay, so first, real quick, let me shill. Next week on Requiem for the GDC, the Holy Spackle will join me. That's next Tuesday. And then the Tuesday after that, Chris Mowdy will be here, who, while not really a member of the GDC, for those who don't know, stuff happened between the GDC and a community that Chris Mowdy's wife ran, and then Chris got pulled into some GDC drama. So that will be an interesting perspective to have as well. And if you, watching, are somebody who was involved in the GDC and you would like to come on and talk, just reach out. I would like a lot of these. I don't want this to be like 4 or 5 episodes. I want a lot of them. Okay.
Well, sorry, just a couple points.
Sure.
The guy's name was Ed Brayton. I think Ed Brahe was the character from Trailer Park Boys.
Yes.
So I was probably wrong with that. But yeah, it was Ed Brayton that wrote the blog. Other than that, like. This is one of the things that's kind of like, I gotta understand what you're saying, but like Chris Mowdy was a member of the GDC. He was a member, like because the the GDC, it's like it was. I can have this conversation. I can come here and I could talk about my experiences in as a member of the community of people that discuss the topic of the big question there, the existence of God,
Sure.
that aspect of the Great Debate, and I can cover that topic for like the history of it, like the type of conversation we had, the people that were involved, and you know, and you realize that Steve McRae is such a small footnote in all
You
this
said the
stuff.
name. Why'd you have to say that?
Yeah, I mean, like, he came out. Yeah, he started a G plus community called the Great Debate Community. Okay, whatever, that's fine. But what happened was that it started becoming recognized as associated with him. So like, when you
Right.
say something like Chris Mowdy wasn't a member of the GDC, absolutely he was. He just wasn't a member of.
Sure. And when I say that's my recollection of what Chris said when I brought that up. And
Yeah.
maybe I misunderstood him or I just heard him wrong. But I thought that's what he told me. That's what I said.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. Yeah, he probably, yeah, like he was never a member of Steve's Great Debate Community, but I would
Okay,
say that
then
as a member of the Great Debate.
maybe
Yeah.
that's what that's probably where the misunderstanding is. Yeah. The Holy Spackle super chatted $4.99 and said, "People still say to Shannon Q, religion is a mental illness." Yeah.
Oh man, I tell you, like it's funny. Like these things used to go in cycles, like seasons. Like it was, we'd be having these conversations, and some brand new atheist would kind of start showing up in the hangouts, and he'd start saying stuff like, religion's a mental illness,
Right.
or be like, oh, just Christianity is just this man-made fiction, and you'll be like, okay, yeah, but can you substantiate that at all? Can you have an argument for that? And they never have anything. The other one was, what's the definition of atheism? Like these were like these funny topics, and we'd laugh because at least 2 or 3 times a year they would come back up, and they would get swatted down so fast. Where it's just like, that's a stupid argument. We're not having that here. And it's funny to see that people have actually built like a YouTube career off of those stupid arguments.
We're going to get to that in one moment. Steve McRae's manager says, "ProLib one day, but not today. You need to have an open conversation with Socka about if a taco is a sandwich. Please do not do it tonight. I
No.
need to go to bed in the next 5 hours." We do one day. Socka and I have promised for a while that we need to have a liberal versus conservatism debate, and we're going to have that one day. I don't know when, but that we are going to sit down and have that conversation one night, and maybe that can be a
Yes.
part of that. Okay, so since we brought up the G plus community, here's how I want to transition over into that. I agree with you that Steve McRae is a footnote in the entire span of the GDC. It's a small footnote. It's just that it seems that he presided over its demise and its perversion into whatever it exists as today. Maybe not singularly responsible, but primarily, in my opinion. And that's another reason why I want to have these conversations. Maybe I'm wrong. In your opinion, why did the GDC start to morph into something so sycophantic?
Okay. All right. So yeah, the GDC, as we know it, died with Google Plus. That's the easiest way to put it. All Steve did was just leave a bad taste for the last last year of it. That's it. Like he didn't kill the GDC. He didn't steal it. Like here's the thing. Like he had the Google Plus community page. It did okay. Some people that were in the community joined it. A lot of people didn't. But the conversations kept on going. The first things that really started going wrong was that the platform that we used was the Google Hangout format. And it was like this revolving door of Hangouts. You can come in, you can talk, you can leave, that's it. But Google did an update, and they introduced this feature or bug, depending on who you talk to, which meant that anybody that was invited to the Hangout had the ability to kick other people from the Hangout from the external chat. So they called them stream snipers. People would get the link, they join, they drop out right away, and then from the external chat that is generated when you go into one of them, they can just go through and just start removing people, and they can just essentially sabotage an entire hangout. So because of that, people became a little bit more hesitant to put out join links. And when people are hesitant to put out join links, well, your discussion-based community starts to suffer because of it. Now that the people that are coming in for the conversations aren't new people that can be exposed to this, it's people that are already kind of are pre-vetted to not be coming in there to snipe the stream. And so that was like the first thing that went wrong. And then when Google Plus itself went down, just people that was just the end. I mean, some migrated over to different places. But I mean, here's the thing: like the Great Debate community that Steve started. I mean, if it was successful because of the shit that he had done, then it could have been moved over to any other platform. He tried to start up a Great Debate community on MeWe, another social media platform. It's still around. It doesn't actually fucking do anything. There's like nobody there. Last time I was there, I think I think I checked in them there the other day, and it's just people posting memes and just stupid shit. People I don't even recognize just that have taken over that. It's not managed or modded by anybody.
Sure.
I think there's a Facebook group, but again, same thing. It's not a large group. It's
There's a
doesn't have
subreddit
like a
as
huge
well
kind of
that has 4 members.
yeah, and there's a suburb like the it was really easy for Steve to create the Great Debate community on Google Plus, because that's where all the people were doing this stuff were. Every other endeavor that was trying to create was trying to transfer over to a different platform failed, because it wasn't because that they didn't want to be part of it anymore. It's just that Steve was never a leader. Steve was never somebody that you can, that was actually managing or running the community. He wasn't. Nobody saw him as some type of senior person, within this. Like,
Well, a senior
you get these
citizen.
people like, yeah, so Nadia Chambers, for example, like she was a facilitator for the discussions. She had the capability, healthy or not, to run 24-hour streams essentially. If you wanted to talk about something, you had a place to go to do it. And people don't want to do that. People have lives and other responsibilities and stuff. So if someone wants to come around and be like, oh yeah, well, I'll manage the Google Plus page. Great. That person's a facilitator. Of a place where these conversations happen. They're not running it. Same thing when everybody went to Nadia's room. She wasn't the leader of our little community. She was the person that just organized stuff for us, and that's all Steve was too. And then once the G Plus was gone, there was no need for him. There was no need for an organized G Plus group. There was no need for anything. Most people, that were part of the GDC at that time went over to Drake's server, to Drake's Discord server. That's where the vast majority of the people from the whole Great Debate community are, even to this day. I've watched Steve streams for a while. I only really had a falling out with him recently. Like prior to that, I used to be pretty good friends with the guy. I went away for a few months, came back, and he kind of found his own little crowd, did his own little thing there. He had the success of the non sequitur show at the time, and that's fine. I was proud of him. I was happy that he was going off and doing his own thing. But you start watching like the videos that he's doing and the people that are there, and it's like, yeah, I don't know any of these people. Like, I don't recognize this community anymore. This isn't my community. Steve didn't leave the Great Debate community, or didn't go off, or it didn't kick a bunch of people out of the Great Debate community, like you said, or leave people behind, or take the Great Debate community to do something. He went off and he just started his own community. That's it. He's got his great drama community and Teen Mom and hating on Katie Joy and defending teen Instagram models and whatever the fuck else he's doing over there. I mean, it's like the only funny thing is, like, every once in a while I hear him reference the people that are around him as the Great Debate community still, and it's just fucking hilarious. Like, there's no fucking debaters in that community. There's no people that are actually engaging in shit. You got like the same 10 people that show up to your open rum and talk nights, and nobody's talking theology. No one's talking philosophy anymore. Because those people aren't interested in that stuff. They'd rather talk about other shit. the great debate community still exists and lives on, but it's on different venues. There are some content creators that are doing some great things. There are some discords. There's a lot of discords out there where these topics are still happening.
Mm-hmm.
Not just dregs, but I mean, like, some of them are, even more gladiatorial than anything that we ever did on G Plus. They're hilarious. So it still persists on. Like, what Steve has now has nothing. It's not a theological or philosophical debate community anymore. It's just he's just off doing his own thing, which is fine. That's where we like him.
Can you talk for a minute about why all rocks are atheists?
Set theory is that if you have two sets of something, so if you have a set of something where it's just like all things that don't believe in God are an atheist, then technically, you kind of break things into two different categories. There are things that believe in God, and then there's everything else, the category of things that don't believe in God. Okay, so if you believe in God, you're a theist. If you don't believe in God, you're an atheist. So therefore, by default, anything that is not a theist would therefore be an atheist. And that would extend into rocks, babies, trees, the planet Jupiter. Doesn't matter. That's the simple form of it. It's a terrible argument. Rocks aren't atheists.
Thank you very much.
No
Okay,
problem.
so can you talk a little bit about when you first became aware of Steve McRae?
Yeah, I mean, I remember he used to show up um, every once in a while in Nadia's Hangouts. It's a decent, like, guy. I mean, he wasn't really big into the philosophy stuff at the time there. Like, in fact, he barely talked on that. I mean, shit. I mean, like, his main thing was that, like, at the time was like he used to, like, yeah, I hate the philosophy stuff. Always talk about young Earth creationism. He was a science guy, like, and if you fuck, I remember going back, like, when he started doing his own hangouts and stuff like 4 years ago. I mean, you got to think, like, he started doing his own hangouts and stuff like 4 years ago. Um, that what was that, like 2016, maybe 2015. I mean, I'd already been around for like 4 years by this time, and just to kind of see this guy up there, and he was okay. I mean, he talked about on the more kind of sciencey side of things, but that wasn't really my bag. So smile and nod along to it. That's it. He starts talking about polonium halos and radiometric dating and shit. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Not really my thing. We talked to philosophy every once in a while, but I mean, he didn't show a lot of interest in philosophy and stuff at the time, which is really funny when you kind of look at the stuff he does now, because he's completely moved away from the science and
Yeah.
now puts himself as kind of like some pseudo philosopher. But yeah, he started doing this stuff in the Naughty Room, and then we the community used to do this thing. It was hosted by JD Kane. It was this little kind of like weekly roundup of like the bad kind of arguments and some of the discussions. Because you got to remember, like, this is a time when, like, there's like, oh man, I remember, like, I'd load up my computer sometimes and be like, oh man, there's like 4 different rooms that I can go into right now. I can go into Nadia's, I can go into Arts, I can go into Xbox Fiends, I can go into whatever. They just everybody's got a room up. It's like, oh, they're debating Calvinism over there. Oh, I'm going to go over there. Young Earth creationism. Yeah, I'm going to avoid that one. And so like, we'd get to, you'd miss some stuff. It was like really hard to consume all the content, especially like with channels like Nadia's that's putting out like almost 24 hours of content a day.
Right. Sure.
So yeah, so like on Tuesday, they would do. People would kind of keep informed. They keep timestamps. They post it all in G Plus, and you could be like, "Oh, hey, go check out what happened here at this hangout at this time." And then Talking Shit Tuesday would you get together, and it was just kind of a way to kind of like unload, kind of vent about some of it, because it's the same arguments over and over again. And some of them are just incredibly stupid. Some of them were good, but it was like, yeah, if you were being mentioned on Talking Shit Tuesday, you always had an opportunity to come in and defend yourself and readdress it there. But it was kind of a fun little weekly thing that a bunch of people did. And the Steve started showing up in there probably, I don't know, like 2017, maybe 2016. I don't know. He just kind of appeared one day, and he was again, he would talk about the young Earth creation and stuff, but he was one of those guys. He's always seeking affirmation from other people. I remember like that. Like he used to get really upset when people corrected him. I mean, that's not a new thing. That's something that's been around for a while. To the point that I mean, like he'd approach people and be like, yeah, we should probably do this off air type thing. Let's not kind of air this stuff out there. You know, but yeah, he did that for a while, and then when Nadia's channel went away. She started up another channel called the Debate Coliseum, and at the same time, that's when Steve started hosting stuff on his channel. And then eventually he said, "Hey, you know what? Let's just create another channel where we can do all this stuff on. We'll call it the Great Debate Community Channel, and it could just be a collection of work the same way as Talking Shit Tuesday. A place where we can just have this kind of amalgamation of all this content right there." And some people were like, yeah, sure, why not? Some people were like, yeah, that's a stupid name. Why are we calling it the Great Debate Community? They didn't really like that, but yeah, that just kind of came in there, and a lot of people were just like, well, okay, who are you? Why are you doing this? That was a reaction from a lot of people.
All right, we've got 2 super chats real quick. Angry Roach donates $5 and says, "What's Socka's stance on aborting 3-year-olds?"
Don't. Please don't. Yeah.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The Sinister Porpoise donates $2 and says, "What is your favorite Steve nickname?"
Oh, geez. I don't know. I try my best to not resort to the straight up insults and stuff. I do like Scooter though. I thought that was funny when I heard that his nickname was Scooter. I thought it funny.
I agree. Dreadnought Silva says, "Steve asked me to tell Scientist Sam to stop correcting him in public."
Yeah, that happened. But I mean, it's weird because you see these parallels that happen, like that. I mean, I'm sure people have seen this stuff already, like that. When Kyle was doing the non sequitur show with Steve, like I've seen the screenshots from them. Like I think the show had been going on for like 3 months, and Kyle's got this exchange with Steve, like back in 2018, where they're fighting over something. They don't like they're clashing, personality clashes. And Steve's just like, well, this needs to be fixed. Let's get Shannon Q in here to mediate this, and we'll talk this. And that was a common thing, is that it was always having to get a mediator in there. That's what he uses Reds for now. But it was the same thing. Like he had to go to, instead of going to Scientist Sam being like, hey man, let's just, can you stop correcting me in public? Although Scientist Sam, I would have told him to go pound sand, go through Dragnot to go through that. It's so fucking juvenile. But I mean, it's the same shit that he does now. Like, I mean, like, if he's got a problem with somebody, he's got to go through an intermediator for it.
And if you watching have not seen that conversation, I acted it out in real time during my interview with Kyle Curtis. So you should go watch that stream. You'll see the whole conversation. Kyle and I acted out. I play the part of Steve, and he plays him. He plays himself. So, in your opinion, well, before we get to that, did you contribute to the brass tacks document?
No, I was so when Steve did his community, when Steve started up the G Plus community, I was pretty good friends with Steve. I was one of the moderators there. I was one of his inner circle guys, as he told me there. I had his complete and absolute trust. And I mean, we used to talk about stuff. And at that time, I was still friends with like some of the people on the TST side, but admittedly they didn't. I probably wasn't as close with them then as I was now. And even though I would come into the room there, I would and hang out with them. I wasn't privy to that because for all intents and purposes, I was Team Steve. I mean, if anybody asks, I was Team Steve. And so I only became aware of it after it was leaked out. And Yeah, so I didn't contribute anything to that document.
At the time, did you feel that what was in it had merit, or did you think it went too far?
No, I thought it was fair. I thought it was a fair analysis of it. I mean, like the there were certain things on there that I mean, like a lot of people had seen, a lot of people kind of knew about. There was also some things that were directed, in my direction, and not just my direction, but other mods as well. The way that we kind of ran things, that there was no real kind of process to kicking people from the community, or muting them or anything like that. And so we had kind of free reign to do things. And I mean, in all fairness, I mean there was people that I did kick from Steve's community that Steve reinvited back in, because he wanted to give another chance. So I mean, the idea that I mean, he did kick some people, and the people that he kicked were kind of questionable, but he wasn't a complete tyrant, completely controlling the conversation. It's just that the examples of the times that he did kick people were, just a little bit more egregious than some of the other people that were kicking for,
Sure.
the more justified reasons.
Yeah, Nate Brody comes to mind. That was anyway. I don't want to get
Yeah,
too
that
deep
was
into
that that
Go
was a
ahead.
bad one. And I mean, like, there's when that happened, I remember that that again, I played the role of the intermediator on that one, or a few times. And there's actually, if Nate ever releases it, that's fine. But there actually is a hangout where I go in there and I'm trying to explain to Nate why Steve's mad, with him, and trying to do like the diplomatic. Oh, you guys are just talking past each other. Oh, don't worry, but you know what? We can work this out. We can do all this other crap. And I'm just, I think back to the fact, and that was like, I can't remember when that. I think it was around Christmas a few years back that happened, and I think back then I wasted, like an afternoon that I think I was supposed to be spending with my family to try to mediate this conversation between Nate and Steve, and I was pretty pissed off about that.
Understandably so. Another shill moment. Somebody said earlier that this has been demonetized. By the way, it was demonetized before we started. It was already a limited advertisement. If you would like to support the channel, feel free to join my bot army. You can click the blue join button below, and you can become a member of the channel. And that helps me when I do these streams to get demonetized. You're still able to support me, and I would appreciate that very much. Um, were you a mod for his G Plus community?
Yeah, I was a mod on his G Plus community, his Great Debate YouTube channel. Um, I was, yeah, no, it was, but I mean, like, it's funny because like a lot of a lot of the mods that actually I'd probably say, um, I can't think of a mod that in his community that isn't currently now a troll or hater of his.
What was
I mean, I'm serious. Like, it was like, I mean, oh, geez, there was. He tried to make Drake. No, that's not true. Like, there was. He did try to point a couple people like mod privileges that never actually did any moderation because they just weren't interested in it. So I think Ozzy Mandias was a mod as well, but I think he never actually did anything or really posted there at all. But I know like myself, Fiona, I think Holy Spackle was one. I think he tried to make Drake once for like no Drake. I don't think Drake ever joined. I think Drake always thought it was a stupid idea. Uh, Kevin, Jackie. I mean, geez, there was a lot of people that were involved in that community. That between just, I mean, building the wiki page that went alongside it, the just generating the material, modding all the conversation. There was a lot of shit that people were doing.
what the wiki? I've heard this wiki page mentioned before, but what was in that?
Oh, so it was supposed to be this joke. It was supposed to be this like, everything needs a fucking wiki, right?
Mhm.
So they said, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do like a great debate Google Plus fucking wiki. But it was supposed to be a joke. Like the rule was that they like all of us will be in there. Like I had a page on that wiki. So did like everybody else. And but the rule was that you couldn't write your own wiki. The wiki had to be written by other people.
Okay.
And yeah, so like mine was hilarious. Like there's like the screaming children in the background, like
Right.
a lot of Canadian jokes. The fact that I don't shut up once I start talking. There's a lot of references to that shit in there.
Sure. Sure.
And and I understand it because it's fun. Like it's like all the fucking like the things that we're kind of known for. Um, and fuck it, somebody wrote Steve's, and it was pretty funny. I mean, it wasn't evil. It wasn't like nobody was bashing on it, but it was the same type of like tongue in cheek kind of sarcasm, poking fun at him type thing. And he lost his mind at that. Like he had to go in, and he broke the one rule of the wiki. He had to edit his own wiki,
Oh.
because the stuff out of that, and it was like that. I think that was actually one of the times where I was just like, yeah, come on, Steve, it's just a fucking joke, get over it. Um, yeah, we have it started by a 16-year-old Australian guy. What was the name? I think his name was Calzer or something like that. Yeah, pretty funny shit though.
Um, speaking of that, there's a lot in the brass tacks document about. Well, okay, like Drag says here, you couldn't write anything bad about Steve. Meanwhile, I'm king of the black people. Right. What? He's right. I mean, yeah. So
Yes, I mean, yeah.
what? Yeah. What about Steve? What is it about Steve that, like, why can't he take criticism? I don't. It doesn't make any sense to me. Do you have any insight into this?
I don't know. Like, I think that it's just that he was really bad at. So there was. I mean, we all are. We all do this. It's not just him. Okay. That it's those gaffes. You make a gaff, and it's going to be repeated. It's going to be brought back. Like Drake said once that he doesn't think he's a nice person. He doesn't think he's a good person in a discussion about ethics. Okay. And that still gets brought up when he talks with Christians out there. Is like, well, Drake doesn't even think he's a good person. Now, there's a lot more context to that, but that gets brought up all the time.
Sure.
And there was a big one at the time that about DNA that in a discussion with a guy named True Empiricism, he put forward this idea that the RNA world theory for abiogenesis couldn't have worked inside of oceans because DNA degrades in water. That's what he said. And all the science people were like, huh, that's weird because shit, that you could store and preserve DNA in water. Like it was that's
Has this person ever heard of fish? I don't.
Yeah, so it became this running joke about
Right.
DNA dissolving in water, and this went back and forth. I mean, like it still gets referenced nowadays about whether or not DNA degrades or dissolves in water. But Steve was really bad for it. Steve fucking would bring it up all the time. Like he would have people people that were like not even involved, like in that original conversation, would come into like hangouts with him, and he'd ask them, to try to get as many kind of like sound bites against True Empiricism as possible because he had a little vendetta against them at the time. And I think that Steve was just terrified of that. I think he was terrified of there being a gaffe against him that gets brought up, like for the criticism. I mean, like. So that's why he doesn't like the open criticism. He doesn't like that stuff out there because if people, will consistently kind of bring up something that you did before in the past, then, he doesn't deal with it well. Like if I fucked up, and I have fucked up,
Sure.
when it comes to, arguments that I've said and stuff that I've done regarding some of the debates that I've had. And I've acknowledged it. And one of the reasons why it doesn't really get brought up anymore because I've kind of corrected it and I've admitted that I've made a mistake on it.
Right.
And even to the extent that, I mean, like if people do screw up and if they do like piss somebody off in the community and whatever, a lot of time they might apologize for it and whatever. And it gets kind of moved, people kind of like gloss over it. And it's that's just a lesson that Steve never learned, is that, when he screws up, he doesn't want to become a gaffe, so he just denies it ever happened, and then he just makes it worse. Most of the problems that Steve has, for example, probably could have been resolved by him just acknowledging, yeah, you know what, I fucked up. I shouldn't have had Warden on, or I probably shouldn't have spent months defending the guy afterwards and saying that stuff. Oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. I can tell you that he has this experience with the people in the community. That his biggest detractors at that time, before he went out and made enemies with fucking a shit ton of new people, most of them would have been like, oh, okay, well, he fucked up. He admitted he fucked up, and that would have been the end of it. Yeah, he should have known that. He's known most of us for a few years, but no, he's just got to double down on that shit and then just make it worse.
Do you think that? Do you think that it was already falling apart and Steve exacerbated it, or do you think that things would be more cohesive today if he hadn't done the things that he had done?
No, it was going to fall apart anyway. With G Plus going out, that style of discussion was gone. Okay, like the our great debate community was a small corner of the internet.
Sure.
It just had to do with just Google Plus. There is tons of other communities out there that discuss theology and philosophy, and they're their own little corners out there. I mean, and the only thing that died was the G Plus Great Debate community, and that was because, well, G Plus just died. Great, but there still is people that do the Great Debate stuff. Like I said, just on different Discord servers. They've moved on. It's new people there now. There's more people are doing that stuff, and I mean, some people have gone off and splintered off and joined different groups out there. But like we didn't move as some cohesive unit like back then, and that once G Plus was gone, that community was going to die anyway. It would have moved to somewhere else. And the biggest factor was the loss of like the open platform for discussion, because the one thing that's always required for the great debate community is participation. You have to have people that are willing to participate, and that there was like after the G Plus was gone, there was really nothing to participate in it anymore.
Sure.
Like on YouTube. Like it took a lot more kind of coordination to try to get hangouts together to do that stuff. And you know what? It's actually coming back. It's there are some stuff that's a little bit better. There's a few people that I've watched out there, like a bunch of new channels that weren't around then. I mean, smaller channels that, yeah, granted, but I mean, like Empathetic Atheist was one of the guys a channel I was on recently. Raging Atheist, I've been on his channel several times, and these guys are the same thing. I mean, they've opened up the rooms, they've allowed people to come in. There's new groups of atheists out there, so it still goes on. And the one thing that it still shows is that you don't need a organized community to run this stuff. And these channels and these groups of people just kind of work together naturally. Yeah, I remember like watching Neil the 604 Atheist, and then from there, like, he's like, oh, and Shannon Q starting something up, and I'm like, oh, cool, Shannon Q, and I go over there, and then, from there, someone throws me to go watch Jen's Little Corner, this small little, atheist YouTube channel, and it's just like, great, and it's good to see that there's no organized structure, there's no,
right.
Group with some type of leader that's keeping these people together. It's there's a community out there where these people are communicating, engaging, and it still functions fine. The great debate community still exists, just not in the same way.
Real quick, because we got a lot more people here than we did at the beginning of the stream. Your messages are put up on screen by the great and irreplaceable Batsy. If you could please put just the letter B in the chat to show Batsy you're thankful. She does a lot of work here in the live chat, moderating. She's the admin on the Discord channel. She does a lot of work behind the scenes, and if everyone could just put the letter B in the chat to say thank you to Batsy, I would really appreciate it, and always puts a smile on her face. Okay, Hans Moist Thunder Nipples.
Sorry.
Asks, do you think that he listens to Chesh too much? She seems to be from the camp of never stop attacking, i.e. maybe that impacted the EDW issue, etc. I mean, I think anyone who listens to Chesh at all listens to her too much. But Socka, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. Like, I think that I'm in agreement with you. Is that any advice he gets from her is probably bad advice. So listening to her at all is too much. But I think Steve has a plan. I just don't think it's a good one, and I think that it's just reinforced by surrounding himself with people that don't check him. I think that's like the main thing. Like man, even to this day, like you know, me and Dragnot, we're pretty good friends online. As far as online friends can go, I consider Drag a good friend. Same thing with a lot of people in the Dragoon Syndicate over on your server. I mean, across other Discord servers that I'm in, I got some good online friends there that I like having these discussions with. And what's really good about these friends is that they will not let me get away with anything at all. And I mean, the amount of times that people have come up to me and said, you probably pushed that a little too hard, or I think you were wrong here. Like I take the criticism and like, yeah, you're probably right. I could try to fix that. Maybe not. Maybe I can do whatever. And I think that that's what Steve's lacking. The a great example like is when me and Steve actually had our kind of final kind of falling out, where I basically just said, fuck this guy. I'm just not going to whatever, just done with him, was when I was watching one of his streams. And previously him and Cheshire had done this show on the 5 C's, of conversation, which was like, critical thinking, charity, like I can't remember what it was just a stupid fucking the hangout. It is by far like one of the cringiest, stupidest fucking like streams I have ever seen before in my life. Like we still have like the there's a segment in there where Cheshire tries to explain critical thinking, and I think we still have it like copied and pasted and pinned in the Dragoon Syndicate chat, because it is like the dumbest fucking thing you've ever seen. It's like that moment in fucking was it Billy Madison, I think it is, where it's just like, he does like the big speech at the end about like the lost puppy, and the guys is like, that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Every single person here is dumber for listening to that.
Right. And, yes. Yeah.
And that's pretty much what it is. But yeah, we after that stream, they had done another one on the principle of charity, and I remember watching that. And one of the problems that I had with the original kind of 5 C's thing I did is that they kept on using the term principle of charity to describe just being charitable, which doesn't make sense. Like, and I'll explain this real quick. Is that the principle of charity is this goes by another name. It's called steel manning an argument. So you try to interpret somebody's argument in the most charitable way possible. You want to strengthen somebody's argument. So if they're making an argument for whatever, like the existence of God or the necessity of God, there's going to be some loose language that might be used. There might be a couple things that they're unsure of, some concepts or whatever. It might be a really kind of thrown together kind of argument. But I mean, if you could understand the basic gist of what they're trying to say, you try to represent it in the strongest way possible, because there's no reason why you're going to take somebody's inability to properly articulate an argument as kind of a win against them. That's what straw manning is that you just give like the weakest understanding of their argument and you try to fight against that, or you misrepresent their argument and you fight against that. Now, the principle of charity is saying that when you present an argument, I'm going to view it in the strongest light possible. But they kept on using the principle of charity as this generic term just to describe simply just being nice to people, just being charitable. And I was pointing out this, like, listen, you don't need to add principle of charity to that, because that's not what you're talking about. You guys are just talking about being charitable. And man, like, they lost their shit on me, like, inside the hangout. They're like, they're yelling at me. They took away my wrench, because at this point in time, I was still a mod on his channel. They banned me from the chat. Cheshire called me a condescending, misogynistic prick, and I was like, yeah, and okay, well, I guess I'm done here. And it's funny because I just brought this up again last night, because somebody had sent us a screenshot of something, and it shows it's on my Twitter feed. Just do a search of like principle, the exact phrase "principle of charity" by Steve McRae, and he uses the term a lot, and he never uses it properly. Because and you can tell this because I can tell you if you ever utter the phrase "I don't give you the principle of charity" or "I don't have to give you the principle of charity anymore" or anything like that, essentially what you're saying at that point in time is I will not represent your arguments in a favorable light. I will misrepresent you or I will strawman you. To negate the principle of charity is essentially say that I will conduct in some type of fallacious line of reasoning and fuck you because of that. Now, I don't think that that's what Steve's trying to say because
No.
he's only talking about being charitable. But I mean, that doesn't sound good. And when you have a bunch of people that don't offer any type of correction to you, oh, I'm just going to use principle of charity. It makes me sound so much smarter, I guess. And if he was still surrounded by people that actually knew what the fuck they were talking about or actually cared about him, saying stupid shit, they would offer some type of correction. They would say, okay, just Steve, hey, I don't think you're using principle of charity right. And he might correct that, but he doesn't. So like with the people that he does surround himself with, unfortunately, they're not in a position to offer him any type of correction or to hold him in check for the stupid things he says. And all that does is this ends up making him say stupid shit all the time. That's his biggest problem. It's not that he listens to Chess too much. It's just that he has nobody worth listening to around him.
Right. Sure, because a lot of people, what you need around you, especially when you're in a position of authority of whatever kind, is people who will question you.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Position of authority.
Yeah, when you're in a position of authority, what you need the most is people who will question you, people who will criticize you, to keep you within the guardrails. Okay, real quick, the Holy Spackle sent $1.99 super chat. Thank you very much for that. Who says Chesh says Socka is misogynistic, which I guess is kind of what you just addressed. Real quick,
I just want to point that out.
Sure.
I am not a condescending misogynist prick. I am not misogynistic. The rest of it's pretty accurate.
That's fair. Real quick, I need a favor from everybody. I'm very close to becoming an affiliate on Twitch. I'm like 10 followers away. So if anyone who has not yet joined my Twitch or followed my Twitch account, if you could just go to twitch.tv/prolib and click the follow button, I would appreciate it. I'm just trying to get to 50 followers so that I can get affiliate. We play a lot of video games together. We play in Civilization and Divinity Original Sin 2. I play them usually during the day, and we have some fun. We just chill out and play video game. Okay, and so Simus says something that I would like you to address. Sokka is wrong here, as Steve uses the principle of principles.
Oh, did the stream die?
No. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Sokka? Are you there? I hear you. I see you.
Oh, okay. There we go. I'm back.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So, sorry. Simus said Sokka is wrong here as Steve uses the principle of principles. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, Simus is a condescending, misogynistic prick, and you don't need to listen to him at all.
Okay, that's fair. That's perfectly fair. Sound of Azure says he's built up his self-image, and that gets reinforced constantly by his current in-group. That's basically what you were saying, right? Like, he's just got this group of sycophants around him that yes-man him into basically justifying anything he does.
Well, I mean, it's weird because, like, he does have, like, this group of, like, hardcore followers, and that's fine. I mean, shit, Drake's got a group of hardcore followers. I think that they hold him to task a little bit more than Steve's followers do. But I mean, it's just something that people have. I'm pretty sure you have hardcore followers. Actually, I know you have hardcore followers.
I do. For some reason.
Yeah. And like, so like this is that's just whatever. Like people like want to defend that stuff, but it's just like the vitriol in which that these people defend him is like that's the weird thing. It's like I can't, like, we've had like some discussions on this, but I think because of like the whole kind of initial breakup between Kyle and Steve, there was that I think that these people truly believe that they're on some type of virtuous side of justice, that regardless what happens, like until the stuff is resolved with the NSS, and that Steve represents somebody who is genuinely wronged, and has to maintain this position of this guy of unimpeachable ethics. And I don't know, it's a really weird thing, because like some of them, like there's this one guy that follows him, and named Mr. Serious. And like like when I used to do like my own, I used to do these late night bring your own topics. My wife's at work, I got nothing to do right now, like open hangouts. And Mr. Serious would jump in there a few times, and we'd have decent conversations. And like, seems like a nice guy, and planted himself firmly on Steve's side, which is fine. Like, I don't fault people for being friends with Steve or following Steve. It's just when you do it blindly, it's just like, or don't hold him to task for the shit that he does. That's when I become a little bit more of an issue. But with that guy, like. I've had nothing but good interactions with that guy at all, and I mean, he's still a mod on my channel, and I'm blocked on Twitter from him. It's like, I don't get that shit.
Yeah, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Puffalopagus, good to see you, Puff, says, debating Socka one time on the issue of objective morality destroyed my belief that it exists. Would you like to talk about objective morality for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of like different stuff that I've kind of the Ozymandias, or the Ozzy, as he's affectionately called around here, it has been a huge influence on a lot of people within the community. And listening to him talk and was one of the things that really kind of like stimulated my interest in the philosophical side of discourse. And there was a time that when Ozzy said it, it was like gospel, and a lot of people would follow into mirror arguments that Ozzy said, including myself. But I really appreciate him, because like one of the things that got me into was actually looking into a lot of these arguments, and coming up with my own positions, to the point that now I don't agree with Ozzy on just about almost every philosophical topic out there, which I think is great. I think that's the goal that people should be shooting for. Sure. But like the morality has always been a fun conversation to have, and it's probably one of the main ones that just keeps on getting popped back up, every once in a while within these discussions. And the basic idea is that. It gets presented as this idea of objective versus subjective morality. A lot of theists will say that if a God doesn't exist, then all morality is subjective. It just comes to the whim of what the individual thinks. Well, sure. The theists would believe that there's some type of more kind of order to the universe, that there's some type of like this objective standard of morality, that something is wrong because it actually is wrong. So like I've moved my position on this. I used to be like the moral realist. I would kind of advocate for objective morals, but I've moved into the idea of a moral anti-realist, a position called error theory, because I think that in order for objective morals to exist, they have to exist as facts of reality. Like there has to be these moral facts. On a moral realist or an objective moral system, a moral proposition can be represented as a true or false statement. So like murder is wrong. That statement is in an objective moral framework or a moral realist framework is either true or false. It does represent a proposition, and for there to be objective morality, some of those propositions actually have to be true. So then the question is, well, what is it about the reality that makes a statement like that true? If I say that murder is wrong, where is the truth factor to that? Is wrongness a characteristic of reality? Is there some type of like wrongness that kind of floats out there in the ether that relates to the idea that murder is wrong? And I don't think that rightness or wrongness are actually qualities of the universe itself. Those appear to be just basic kind of like judgment calls on our part, or value sure. judgments. Sure. And so if the question is then that if morality is measured on the rightness or wrongness of actions, well, if there's nothing that actually makes a proposition like that true, then I would have to say it's false. So the statement "murder is wrong" isn't a true statement. It's actually a false statement. But then again, the statement "murder is right" is also a false statement, because there's no aspect of reality that gives those statements the truthness or falseness to make it that way.
Sure.
So because of that, I say that objective morals, therefore these objective moral facts can't exist, and that all moral propositions turn into statements that are just inherently false. And so where does that leave us? Well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go from there. And I mean, if we have another 2 hours, I can go into some of it. But
no, it's okay.
That's how I start off to get positioned at my anti-realist position, which isn't to say that I think therefore I can go out and do whatever I want absent any type of consequence, because I think that there's other more effective theories that describe things that way.
No, I agree. It's we won't go into this, but we can sometime if you want. But that's why we base laws on.
I'm always up for these conversations.
No, I know. But that's why we base laws on ethics, not morals, right? We have ethical standards that create laws in society. When we have moral laws, we tend to turn into like, oh my God, the religious form of government. I want to say oligarchy, but it's not oligarchy. It's anyway. That tends to be more like, we have like Sharia law and stuff that the laws are attached to a moral code or a religious code of some kind. I just can't think of the word. Someone's going to put it in the chat and be like, yes. Okay, so yeah, and I agree with you. I think you and I would be on the same page. I think we could have a fun theocracy. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of theocracy. Yes. But we could have that conversation one night about moral objectivity. I think that would be fun. So I want to kind of start to wind down here. In your opinion, what was, like, when you think back of the great debate community, of the GDC, of the glory days, what's something that you think about fondly?
Oh man. Oh jeez. There's so many. I mean, it's it's just the people. Like the people have always made the community what it is, and that they. I mean, shit. There's people that I went to high school with, over like almost 20 years ago, that I don't really think about at all. But there's people that have had these, and people that I spent, the entire time I was in high school with, people that were friends of mine in high school, that I don't even think about. But the amount of interactions and the deepness to some of the conversations that we've had with some of the people inside these chat rooms and stuff, you get to know people on a level that you don't find in just kind of regular conversation, even with people that you might be friends with. And so I think to where a lot of them are, and how they're doing and stuff, because you don't have that type of insight or that access to them, especially when people not hide, but they post behind pseudonyms or Socka accounts. So I think it's the people that definitely make this. And I mean, and I've been incredibly fortunate as well that I have met up with quite a few people, like people that I've met online in these communities. I have met in real life, and I have never had a bad experience with any of them. Like, it's been tons of fun. Yeah, I just and I look forward to meeting more. I do travel quite a bit. So whenever I go somewhere, that I know that somebody lives there, I always try to make sure that we can make arrangements to meet up, have a drink, get a pizza, whatever.
That would be fun.
But it's the people.
I would do that. Yeah. Well, real quick, Dana McWhite sent a $1.99 super chat saying Trump 2020. Hi, Dana. Excuse me. And I agree with you. I think, the vast majority of people, again, I kind of like knew a little bit. I've talked about this before, but I would see the Great Debate community mentioned on like flat Earth subreddits I was on and stuff. So I kind of like was aware of its existence, but I wasn't really involved with it until about a year ago when I started to get, well, I guess more than a year ago now, when I first started to watch the Non Sequitur show, and then when I started this channel. Um, so, I doubt that I've met everyone from the old GDC, but the vast majority of them that I have met seem like nice people that, just like to engage in spirited discourse. And Jake 4D, one of my great bot army members, you should join the bot army as well, said, how do you foster a fair platform for discourse and debate? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think that the issue is that we give too many controls to people. So, for example, like uh, you have to have a room that's moderated by somebody, and they have the control. They have the power to mute people. They have the power to kick people. When you go into the live chat, like you see those blue wrenches, and like sometimes you gotta be careful with what you say because that they. You step, especially in some channels. Some channels are really trigger happy with the blocks and the bans and stuff.
Sure.
Um, I usually what I used to do is I used to hold hangouts, and I would there were these bring your own topic hangouts, and I get like maybe if I was lucky like 60 people watching them if they were during good hours, 30 people watching most of the time if they were in shit hours,
Sure.
but every single person that came into the room, because I used to do it on the Google Hangouts platform, was made a mod, and every single person that would post inside the live stream got a branch. My channel, which I have 560 odd subscribers on my Socka account channel, I have 396 mods
Wow.
because
Wow.
yeah, I have a very low bar. But what that does is that nobody can time anybody out. Nobody can block anybody. Nobody can hide anybody's comments because mods see everything. Even if you have somebody, even if a mod has somebody blocked, when you're a mod on the channel, you have to see what they say.
Right.
It's not a safe space. But because every single person goes in there and there's that expectation of that complete equality across the board in the approach to discourse, I have never been porn bombed. I've never had people come in and make a big deal about something. I mean, I have like people came in that would come into the live chat with just like the stupidest trollish names. Yeah, here's your blue wrench. Have fun.
Sure.
And what are they? And it's amazing that you can turn people that were there just to troll and whatever into serious members of the discussion, serious participants in the discussion, because all of a sudden it was just like, well, like shit, I'm just here to cause a shitstorm until somebody blocks me, and that's
Right.
not going to happen.
Right.
And so they just end up start participating instead.
Sure.
So I think that like and not every single person agrees with me, and it probably would not work on anybody that has any larger of a following than what I have. But if there's that expectation that every single person is going to have, that doesn't have that, the guillotine hanging above them, there, ready to chop them or kick them, at a moment's notice, that I find that that's the best way to get true kind of honest, fair discourse.
No, and I agree. I think, one of the tenets that I set up when I first started this channel was I wasn't going to make it a safe space. This isn't a safe space or an echo chamber. My Discord is public. Anyone can join. We have very strong security measures. You have to have joined with an account that's verified by a phone number. So if you do something bad, we'll report you to Discord, of course. But I find that is a more interesting and more engaging way to have a channel. You don't get banned out of my chat for super chatting Trump 2020. I'm not one of those progressive liberals, and I agree. I think that it's important that people need to be able to feel that they can come into your channel and say something. They can criticize the people, whoever's running the channel. In this case, it would be me. They can criticize whoever the guest is. But that criticism can be attacked, or that the criticism, in other words, if I say something and I'm wrong, people should feel free to call me out on it, and they have. That it's happened before. It will happen
We
again. Bad news. I'm not perfect, but at the
I had
same,
this one guy
yeah, go ahead.
come in once that was spewing a lot of kind of like nationalistic, anti-Semitical, like the kind of like stuff in inside my hangout once, and I didn't kick him. I talked with him. We engaged. We shot some ideas back and forth. We ended up talking about the World Bank and who controls the money and all this other crap. And
Right.
it was a very kind of like a weird conversation because I've never really dealt with like that level type of like kind of anti-Semitism, and we kept in check. I never got too like overly offensive. No slurs or anything like that. And then
Sure.
afterwards, the guy messaged me. He's like, "Hey, could I clip this and put this on my channel?" I'm like, "Absolutely, go for it." And then, he messaged me again, says, "Hey, next time you have a stream, can I come back in? Because I feel like, I didn't represent myself properly. Looking back on this now, looking at the way that this went, I really want to try again." And I'm like, "Absolutely. Fuck, I don't care. Like, yeah, let's get more discourse in there. Like, if you want to try to an opportunity, try to like, you know, come in and talk and not sound like, like a complete Nazi, then
Right.
sure, let's do it. I'm didn't ban him from it. I think the guy's still a mod on my channel.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously there are you can't come in and do something that violates YouTube's terms of service, right? We're going to ban you for that. You can't come in. If somebody comes in and just says, "Hey," I'm trying to think what something like, I don't believe that non-binary people exist. Like, I don't think that that's a thing. That's not something that's going to get you banned, but we're going to confront you on it. If you come in and say something, some NIFB shit, which I'm not even going to try to,
Hmm.
even jokingly, I'm not going to mention that. That's going to get you banned, right? No one's out to, say people should be erased. Certain people should be erased. Um, and I think that provides more productive engagement over time than anything else. And if there's anything that I think I am trying my best to continue from the Great Debate community is that spirit. If somebody has a viewpoint which I consider transphobic or homophobic or something, I would rather confront them on it uh, as a way to show why I do believe that it is transphobic or it is homophobic or bigoted in whatever way, than it is just say, "Oh, well, you're banned. Goodbye." I just don't think that
Yeah.
that it works long term.
No, no, that's exactly it. Like, and the what's the idea that like people that have come up with like really bad ideas or really bad positions shouldn't be pushed away for those.
Right.
Like, just, hey, let's walk through this whole thing. I want to know why it is that you believe this, and I want to dissuade you of these notions that you have. And I'm not going to do that if the first thing that you do when you come in and say that I don't think a trans woman's a real woman is like, I'm not going to ban you right away. Just like, okay, well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about why is that you think that. Because now my goal is I want to change your mind, because I don't
Right.
want you going into the next room and trying to convince somebody of that idea now.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, hold on, I reset it. Like, Holy Spackle just said, you disabuse people of bad ideas or show them to have flawed arguments. Exactly. Um, I said this in my Discord the other day. If you make a bad argument, or let me, that's not how I want to say this. If you feel a thing is a certain way, for instance, I'm a pagan and a polytheist. I don't apologize for it. I'm aware that if you sit down with me scientifically, I can't prove that my paganism and my polytheism exists according to science. I completely admit that. Um, but I still stand by the conviction because it's what I believe is to be the truth. And um, I challenge everyone else. If you truly believe a thing, you should be able to go into a hostile space where people disagree with you and say, "No, here's why I believe this thing. I hear your arguments. But if you can't stand by it in the face of criticism, I can't say that you truly believe it."
Hmm. Yeah, it's weird because like I'm an atheist.
Mhm.
Um, and even though like I am conservative in a lot of my political views, I'm Canadian conservative, which is not quite the same thing as American conservative.
No, no.
But I'm also and I'm also extremely like pro life. Like when it comes to like those discussions, and I've had numerous conversations when I've been in rooms with groups of
Banned.
my
Hold on,
fellow
let me ban you
atheists.
real quick. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and and on the most part, like like when you finally get to the end of like my kind of like my spiel, like my kind of argument, it's never like you're wrong or anything like that. It's always like shit. Well, you got a point, but I'm just going to disagree with you because reasons. And I'm like, that's fine.
Sure.
But I have no problem with that. But yeah, like I'm used to being pretty hostile, being in rooms with people that are being hostile. I used to seek it out when the presuppositional apologetics was like a really big game going on in the theological discussion. I would purposely put myself in rooms with 5 or 6 presuppositional apologists and be like, all right, let's do this. And that was a lot of fun. I used to enjoy that stuff.
Well, just as a reminder, next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, the Holy Spackle will be here for her Requiem for the GDC. And then the week after that, on the 14th of July, Christopher Mowdy will join me, who has a very interesting perspective on the GDC. And I'm very much looking forward to
Probably a
that.
good one.
And again, if you are somebody who used to be in the GDC and you would like to come on for this series, this is a weekly series I'll be doing for a while. All you got to do is contact me, and we'll get it set up so that you can come on and have your own time to talk about the rise and fall of the GDC from your perspective. Sokka, do you have anything you want to that you want to shill?
Oh, I don't do anything anymore. But I mean, there's a lot of channels that I'm out there that I'm watching. Like watch Progressive Liberal, obviously. Like that's an amazing show. Been really enjoying the content you've been putting out.
Thank you.
I've been watching a lot of In Time as well recently. They had Lana Knoll on tonight talking about statehood of Washington. Great. I mean, if people haven't checked In Time out in a while, go check it out again because especially during when they're doing a lot of the riot coverage. Man, I really enjoyed that stuff. Um, I have to Nakasuchi, the raging atheist, the rage, whatever he's going by nowadays. I've always enjoyed his channel, and he's actually been really lucky recently that he's had some really good like professional theologians on engaging discussion. So if you're actually still into like some of the religious discussion, you could see my conversation on the omnipotence paradox with Scott Braith. From a week and so ago, and Floyd FP had a discussion with Scott Braith as well as Randall Rouser last Friday, I believe it was, on the necessity of God, which was a interesting conversation as well. So I mean, like I'll shill for other people's channels. Also, check out Dragnot if you like watching black on black violence. That's the Drake just tears apart G-Man. It's hilarious.
He does.
No,
God, I wish
it's his commentary on it is really good. He like a lot of people just like oh like Drake like from the outside just like see Drake's making a G-Man video or a Delroy video or a Shani for video, and you're just like oh man, like what's he doing? But there's a reason why he gets a lot of people watching his live stream and a lot of people subscribe to him because his view on the commentary on that and like what he brings to it is just really good. So
it really is.
check out Drake stuff.
It's absolutely fantastic. Drag's just he's the best. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., the first episode of Trek It premieres here on the channel. It is nothing but Star Trek content. So if you want to come nerd out and talk about Star Trek, Nick Suter is going to join me. We're going to talk about the philosophy of Star Trek and how that philosophy has evolved over the years. I think it's going to be a really, really, really fun show. And the idea is hopefully over time we'll have more people from the community just to come in and talk about Star Trek. Because there's so much shit going on nowadays. I need a fucking break, and I need a Star Trek break. And so I'm having a Star Trek show to talk about Star Trek. Yeah, that's a thing. Also,
that short discussion we had in Discord the other day was great about it.
It was, and you're gonna have to come on one time too. Also, I'm doing a lot of gaming over on Twitch, so if you could come join me, twitch.tv/prolib. Very close to getting affiliate. I need 50 followers, and if I think I'm at 40, so if we could just get a couple of people to go over there and click follow, that would be amazing. And I think I'm done shilling now. Thank you to everybody who super chatted. Thank you to the phenomenal members of my bot army who support the channel and everything that I do. I appreciate you all. Socka, thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Absolutely. So I'm going to say goodbye to Mr. Socka, and then I'm going to say goodbye to all of you. Thank you all for watching. Next Tuesday night, next episode, Requiem for the GDC. Don't miss it. The Holy Spackle and me. Good night, everybody.
From 9 to 5, been biting my tongue for all this time. Won't let anyone cut me short. I was thinking this was the way to go, and you put up your puppet show. I say cheers to life. No, I'll be no good man's wife. Just leave me alone. I'm running the show. I'm telling you, it's my time to rise up. Live the life I'm proud of. No, you better go home. I'm telling you, it's my time to rise up. Live the life I'm proud of. So I woke up, sun in my eyes, forgot all about what I did last night. What I do, remember that it was real, real nice. Talks about me are never good. I don't live like the way that I should. Oh well, I'm in for some fun tonight. Just leave me alone. I'm running the show.